something big is happening in global trade. After months of escalating the tariff war with China, President Trump now says the 145% tariffs he imposed are too high. He's confirmed they'll be coming down soon, but not all the way to zero. Behind the scenes, reports suggest the White House is working on a tiered system, cutting tariffs heavily on non-critical goods like clothing and furniture, while keeping higher tariffs on strategic sectors like technology and electric vehicles. Early reports indicate the new tariff rates could fall somewhere between 50% and 65%, depending on the category. At the same time, China just quietly rolled back some of its retaliatory tariffs, specifically dropping the steep 125% duties on key US-made semiconductors. But they didn't announce it with any fanfare. It was a quiet move, almost as if they didn't want to show weakness. Markets rallied on the news. Headlines exploded with talk of an ease in US-China tensions. But the bigger story is this: even if tariffs come down, they're not returning to their original levels, and global companies aren't turning back to China. The China Plus One strategy, the move to diversify supply chains away from China, is already locked in. Welcome to Smart Money Vids, where we turn headlines into real-world insights for entrepreneurs, investors, and forward thinkers. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, because today's moves could shape tomorrow's biggest opportunities. And stick around until the end, because we're not just looking at what's happening now. We'll also reveal where supply chains are moving next, and why those who understand the shift early could be positioned to win big in the global economy that's being reshaped right now. For China, the silent rollback of semiconductor tariffs signals something even more telling: vulnerability. Semiconductors are critical to China's tech ambitions and economic stability, and right now, China still relies heavily on US suppliers for these essential components. Quietly removing tariffs without a major announcement shows that Beijing is trying to stabilize key sectors without appearing to bend publicly under US pressure. And the pressure isn't just coming from the United States. Reports suggest that European Union officials are closely monitoring China's surge of fully loaded shipping containers sitting at their ports, canceled by US buyers, to prevent a flood of cheap goods from overwhelming European markets. Even Europe is preparing to guard against a potential wave of Chinese dumping. Meanwhile, markets rallied on reports of tariff rollbacks, with investors hoping these moves could mark an easing of US-China tensions. But underneath the optimism, a more cautious reality remains. This isn't a full reset by either side. For Trump, the tariff cuts are a tactical adjustment responding to domestic pressure. For China, the semiconductor concession is a forced move, driven by weakness in its tech sector and growing concerns about a slowing economy. And for global companies, the message is clear. The risks that pushed them to diversify away from China haven't disappeared. If anything, the latest moves only confirm that a deeper realignment of global trade is already underway, and it's not just about tariffs anymore. At first glance, lower tariffs might seem like a reason for optimism, a chance for businesses to go back to the old ways of sourcing cheaply from China without the extra cost burdens. But that's not what's happening. The global supply chain is no longer just about cost savings, it's about risk management. And companies have learned the hard way over the last few years that concentrating production in a single country, no matter how efficient it may be, leaves them dangerously exposed. First, it was COVID lockdowns that froze Chinese factories for months. Then it was the US-China tech war, export bans, and national security crackdowns. Now, it's tariff uncertainty and political tensions that could swing overnight based on a single policy decision. Even if tariffs fall from 145% down to 50%, the lesson has already been learned. Smart companies aren't waiting to see if relations improve. They're building Plan B and Plan C to ensure their operations survive, no matter what happens next. And beyond tariffs and pandemic risks, there are deeper, structural problems pushing companies to diversify. For years, foreign firms doing business in China faced serious barriers: forced technology transfers, intellectual property theft, and restrictions that required Chinese partners to hold majority control of their operations. Even when U.S. companies faced blatant IP violations, winning cases in Chinese courts was nearly impossible. Meanwhile, scandals involving Chinese companies listed on U.S. stock exchanges have shaken investor confidence, raising new concerns about transparency and accountability. It's not just about tariffs anymore. It's about trust and whether companies can protect their ideas, their investments, and their future in an increasingly uncertain environment. For businesses today, diversification isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And that's exactly why the China Plus One strategy has become more than just a buzzword. It's becoming the new foundation of global trade. In response to rising risks, a familiar strategy has surged back into focus: China Plus One. The idea is simple. Instead of relying exclusively on China for manufacturing and supply chains, companies are expanding into other countries to spread their risk. China Plus One isn't new. Companies began exploring alternatives years ago, during earlier waves of tariffs, regulatory crackdowns, and supply chain shocks. But today, it's no longer a side plan. It's becoming a core strategy for businesses that want flexibility, stability, and control. Rather than abandoning China completely, companies are setting up additional production hubs. That way, if tariffs spike, tensions rise, or new restrictions hit, they have options and they're not trapped in a single system. Coming up next, we'll break down exactly where companies are moving and why some countries are emerging as the next global supply chain leaders. As companies move to diversify their supply chains, 3 countries are standing out: India, Vietnam, and Mexico. India is emerging as a major player. Already one of the world's fastest-growing economies, India has made huge investments in infrastructure, technology, and manufacturing capacity. Major companies like Apple, Tesla, and Samsung are ramping up production in India, attracted by a massive workforce, improving logistics, and a government eager to strike trade deals with the U.S. With rising tensions between the U.S. and China, India's growing political and economic ties to the West make it an increasingly attractive alternative. Vietnam is another major winner. Vietnam has quietly become one of the world's leading hubs for electronics, apparel, and consumer goods manufacturing. Its low labor costs, business-friendly policies, and proximity to China make it an ideal relocation spot for companies that still need access to Asian supply networks, but want to avoid China's direct risks. Brands like Nike, Adidas, and Intel have already shifted major parts of their supply chains to Vietnam, and the momentum is accelerating. Mexico is also playing a bigger role than ever before. Thanks to the USMCA trade agreement and its geographic proximity to the United States, Mexico has seen a surge in nearshoring activity. Companies in industries like automotive, electronics, and consumer goods are increasingly moving production to Mexico to reduce shipping times, cut costs, and minimize exposure to geopolitical uncertainty. Today, Mexico has even surpassed China as the United States' largest trading partner, a shift that would have been almost unthinkable just a few years ago. Each of these countries offers a different advantage. India provides scale, Vietnam offers speed, Mexico delivers proximity, and companies that are serious about resilience are moving fast to lock in new partnerships before supply chains get even more crowded. The shifts happening right now aren't just headlines. They're roadmaps for those who know what to look for. First, pay attention to the sectors that could benefit from tariff cuts. Industries like clothing, furniture, and consumer goods may see costs drop, giving early movers an edge. Second, watch where the U.S. is building new trade ties. Deals with countries like India, Vietnam, and Mexico are making it easier and cheaper for businesses to shift production. Third, look beyond manufacturing. Supply chain moves are creating ripple effects in logistics, warehousing, and regional development. And smart investors are already positioning themselves. The message is clear. In a world where supply chains are shifting fast, early action beats late reaction every time. The global supply chain isn't waiting. It's already shifting. Tariff cuts might ease some pressure between the U.S. and China, but the deeper move away from over-reliance on China is permanent. Businesses that adapt early will dominate. those that hesitate could be left behind. At Smart Money Vids, we're all about turning knowledge into action. Check the description for helpful tools and subscribe for more insights that help you stay one step ahead. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.